Hello everyone, it is I, Deimos, and welcome back to my fellow dungeon delvers. Today we're going to run through some dark and darker tips and tricks that you can use as soon as the game drops again in February to hit the ground running. Now, these are going to be based off the last playtest, and some of this info might be slightly different, but I highly doubt the changes are going to be so groundbreakingly different that it's going to render any of these useless. If you're looking for any of the new changes that are going to be coming or that are planned for the game, I highly recommend you check out my last video where we went over a depth Q&A and talked about some of the bigger changes that are coming or are planned to come in whenever they end up deciding to show up between now and the game's release. But the tips today are going to be pretty general, but they are going to make a huge difference if you're not aware of them. And we're going to start with the class selection to make sure that we're all on the same page. Dark and Darker has a very classic RPG class system, but there is plenty of crossover as well, and we're going to touch on that shortly. Classically, we do have classes that specialize in DPS, support, and tanking. Fighter is the jack of all trades. If you want to clear the corridor, play Fighter. If you want to put on heavy armor and be a massive pain in the ass, play Fighter. If you want to use a bow and a sword, play Fighter. Wizard is going to be your classic wizard, and Cleric is going to fall into this magical class as well because they do use spells, but the wizard is a lot more DPS focused while the Cleric is kind of more of a support. But do not underestimate the Cleric because they're more of a support. I'm sure 90% of the player base is going to agree with me when I say that Cleric is probably the best class in the game. Heavy armor, a solid weapon, and healing make one hell of a combo. Ranger is going to be your classic range DPS, but there really is nothing notable to say about them at the moment except that they're good at range. Rogue has a ton of perks, bypassing lockpicks, becoming invisible, faster than fast attack speed, and plenty more, but they do have really low health. However, overall they are a great class. Barbarian is going to be your pure DPS class of the game, but I truthfully think that Fighter is better just because they're a lot more versatile, but Barbarian is plenty viable, believe me. There's plenty of videos out there showing you this exact thing. We're going to start with some looting tips. Looting armor and weapons is pretty much useless unless you plan on using them. Treasure items are the king in this game, and the value per slot is unbelievably higher than armor and weapons. If your bag is empty, then yes, 100% pick up that shield, but as soon as it causes an issue with picking up any treasure item, drop it. Also, make sure that you're not looting base items, meaning items that a class is going to spawn with, because these sell for absolutely no gold. Treasure items are things like chalices, bands, gems, etc. The only caveat to this is always pick up jewelry on any class because any class can wear it, and it's always worth using for the boosted stats it provides. Next are going to be some more PvE tips, and the enemies in Dark and Darker are actually extremely tanky and do a lot of damage. It's extremely important to ensure that you don't ignore these enemies, especially when PvP might be imminent. Just in a 1v1 between the mobs, these enemies can 100% take you out, and if you have multiple mobs aggroing you at once, they can cause a huge problem for you, and in some very real cases, you will quickly find yourself dead, especially if real players are involved. Don't be afraid to use these mobs in your own fights though. This sort of counters what I just said, but if you're confident in your abilities, you can always use the mobs to your advantage. If you know that the room you're in has a mob spawn, then you can try and use them to aggro onto the enemies or just apply pressure to them. The more enemies in a room that are attacking, the more pressure is going to be applied to both parties. Also, this is a prime time to attack a squad. If you hear them fighting mobs, I highly recommend pushing them aggressively while they're already distracted and possibly damaged by those mobs. PvP tips, I'm not a big PvP guy, okay? I'm not the best. I played a ranger for the entire thing and I got smoked by rogues, okay? But I do have one thing I can say, and that is knowing the map layout is massive. The maps are not randomly generated. There is, I think, 3 different variants of the map that are on a random rotation, so you can learn kind of the configuration and where each rooms are. And knowing what each room holds, what they look like, the exits and the entries are gonna be huge. Since there's no sprint in the game, there really isn't much of an exit strategy on the spot if you start to get killed. If you find yourself in trouble, you need to know the exits and especially where the mobs are going to be so you don't accidentally aggro them and make it way worse on yourself. Use your environment, mobs, other enemies, ledges, anything. There is no easy escape in this game, so you need to be smart, and knowing the map and the rooms is huge knowledge. Also, dancing around your enemies helps a lot. Swing, back up, and when they swing, move in. This is going to take a lot of practice, but eventually you'll kind of see the rhythm of the battle and you'll know exactly how to move. Enjoying the video? Subscribe. Learning lots? Leave a like. Learning nothing? Dislike and comment how you're a Dark and Darker prodigy and already knew all this. Either way, make sure to interact with the video as it helps out a ton and lets me know that you're enjoying it. Next, we're going to talk about extracting, and this is going to be a very quick topic, but the blue pillars indicate back to the lobby exits. So these are your classic extraction points. They spawn in and open a portal when interacted with, but it's important to know that they are only one-time use, so you and your party have to find separate portals for each player. Red pillars indicate portals to the Inferno. These take you to a harder level of the dungeon, but they're great ways to escape quickly if you're being hunted down by a squad or or if you know that you're not going to find an exit in time before the circle closes. However, you can still find players down here, although I never personally have. Also, the mobs down here are very difficult and the rooms are much smaller and a lot more intricate. It's very easy to get overwhelmed in the Inferno, but if it's Inferno or death, I highly recommend the Inferno for a second chance at living. Next, the revive system. Reviving your teammates is very straightforward, but it can be extremely difficult. To do this, you need to remove the down teammate's chest piece and pick up their soul. Souls are going to be 2x2 slots, and they can only be used at revive tables, which are very few and far between. It's worth always picking up your teammates' souls, but if the locusts are closing in and the map is more or less closed off, then it's probably a waste of space, since I've noticed finding a revive table anywhere deep in the map is basically impossible. That being said, you can always grab their best loot, grab their soul, and try to go to the Inferno. There are revive tables down there, and usually there's one in or very close to the first room that you're going to enter. As of recording this video, we only have 27 days until the Tankard of Loot blesses us with Dark and Darker's return, so stay strong, my friends. We'll all have the ability to kill each other again soon. Have a wonderful day, and be sure to like and sub if you haven't already, and I'll see all of you guys next time.